Welcome back today to another glorious day here at the Smile Mentor community. Today is a special day for this video to introduce it. I'm Matt Griffin, the Smile Mentor, and this whole project really was birthed out of my relationship with my mom. She was the nexus, if you will, for this whole project. For those out there that either have a mom or a mom trying to look for her son or any of that kind of stuff when it comes to dental issues, especially implants and the All-On-4, All-On-X. So my mom had to go through upper and lower. She was in a denture for 20 years, something like that, long time, a lot of resorption. And the doctor had to do a very special case with her. I think he had to go zygomatic, which means you go back into the zygomatic bones structure back here, which is your cheekbones basically. And it's pretty complicated. He had to do guided surgery. There was no room, there was hardly any bone to be able to do the surgery. So, but she got done and she went through some challenges with it. And so you get to hear her story, hear what the family history is like, the emotion side of it, and why I would want to do this for the moms out there, because sometimes the hopelessness you can feel when you're going through this, the embarrassment, the shame, you guys know this. So, but again, remember, we're not alone. And so hope you guys enjoy getting to hear a mother and son talk about their dental history and why this was so important for me to do this. For everybody out there who's followed us from the beginning, thank you. And if you're new to the Smile Mentor and wondering what we're doing, the description below, you can click a link that will take you to one of the videos that describes and explains the story with my mom and some of that kind of good stuff too. So for those of you that have not yet subscribed, you know what to do, and have a blessed day, guys. Thanks for joining us and hope you enjoy. What a unique journey this has been for us, huh?
Right.
Our family has not had the best luck when it's been dental work in the past. Fair statement?
Fair.
Help me set the stage from your eyes, of just some of how would you describe our family's dental history?
I would say that you and I have had the most challenges with our dental. And I've thought many times as to, there was a dentist that wanted to do your orthodonture differently because you had 2 missing laterals. Mm-hmm. And so he had an idea as to how to do that, and he really wanted to do it, and would have been like less than half of an orthodontist.
Really?
But, because I was so convinced. I had worked for an orthodontist at one point, and so credentials meant everything to me. I would dare let somebody that wasn't an orthodontist to straighten your teeth? No. And yet, with all the problems that you've had with them, I have regretted many times that I didn't take that road instead of the other road because of the damage that was done from the orthodonture, the braces being on there, the length they were. And so I had problems with my teeth as far as abscesses. Abscesses started when I was in high school. When they took out my molars, when I had to have impacted molars, and I've had
wisdom teeth or molars?
Wisdom teeth. Excuse me. I had my wisdom teeth were impacted, and I was in college, and they took 2 of them out and used no anesthetic or anything. And I was over there at college by myself, no family was around. So that was a very painful time. And another time, I had an abscess And that was in Arizona. And oh, it was so painful. And the guy was supposedly a specialist. Go to the best, right? Was supposedly a specialist. And but I didn't get that from somebody that'd gone to him. And he didn't use any anesthesia to do it. So that was super painful. Well, from the bridges I had, I mean, it was just on and on and on with the teeth. It was just, so finally, and I thought I had found a really good dentist. And so that they had done one bridge and was going to do another one. Well, I went to somebody else and they said, oh, don't dare let him do that. Don't you realize with the bone loss that you have that has to be taken care of, that would never hold? Well, that blows my confidence again in that, for what that had done. So very frustrated. I mean, to think about what do I do next. I was just anything to go minimally to get by. I'd spent so much money, so much pain, so much time with dentists and supposedly specialists that enough's enough. So that finally I got to a point of, all right, my top teeth, there were just so many different problems, and I was losing the bridges that they'd put in. I was losing, they were getting ready to break, and so I decided, okay, I'm just going to go with a denture on top. I give up. So I went to dental school. I thought, well, I mean, nothing's been very good with me paying very top dollar. Maybe with an instructor there, they'll watch. So I went to a dental school, and it ended up that not only did I have the rest of my teeth pulled, but then they had to operate on the roof of my mouth because there was a bone up there that shouldn't have been there all this time. So I get a denture. Well, it ends up not fitting right. And the student says, well, maybe you're just not, some people just have a low tolerance of pain. Well, I have a very high tolerance of pain. So I finally go to somebody else that is a tech that just shaves it off and makes it right so that the denture works. I didn't know at the time, which I wish I had known, that of how much bone loss that you're going to have if you have a denture. Right. Nobody ever told me that. That was never mentioned.
Yeah.
So I thought, so I'm going along with the denture and doing okay, and it's not the best, but it is. I mean, it solved a problem. But then I finally learned that, okay, you need to absolutely, I was scared to death to take it out at night because I did not want anybody to ever see me without my denture. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. I'm not very vain, but when it came to my teeth, vanity really raised its head. So I would take it out at night, and then when I had younger grandchildren come along, to where that, oh my gosh, I can't dare let them know that I have a denture. Think about, my granddaddy had dentures, and he used to shoot them out to me. He took it as great humor. Well, that's okay for granddaddy to do that, but it's not okay for me to do that.
Yeah.
So that I wasn't about to let my grandchildren see me without my dentures. Well, then a dog eats them. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? So there's just, one thing after another.
Dog eats them. Whose dog?
The son I'm still speaking to. It's a miracle I am.
Marley, rest his soul. That was
and he got it so quickly because I just laid him down for a second. And man, he got to it. So, but then I learned about implants. and 4-on-4. Those were not, as far as I know, were not available back when I got dentures. I had heard
Which is about, what, 20 years ago?
Is it that long? Oh my goodness. Let's see, we've been here about 16 years ago, 16. 17. And I'd heard about laser dental, but I didn't really, when we moved to Texas, I didn't really know of anybody or heard of anybody. I did in Arizona, but I didn't hear in Texas.
Yeah.
So I really didn't know of a good dentist, or I didn't find somebody. I went to a couple of different people and did not have a very good experience. So I just stuck with the dentures, and then when the lowers got worse, my son had gone to Costa Rica and had gone to Mexico and had work done and had some implants done. Well, then I learned about this All-On-4 after, and I thought, and I was still going to keep the denture on top, but to do the denture on the bottom. And when I went to see a professional, that he looked at them, and it was the dentist that you had worked with and had been really good with you. So I went over to see him, and he looked at it, and he said, well, we can do the lower. He said, I've got good news and bad news. We can do the lower, and that'll be fine. He said, but even if you were my mother, he said, I would not do the upper because you've had so much bone loss. Well, I didn't argue with him because I knew, by that time, I knew the bone loss was there.
Yeah.
Because the denture was getting harder to stay in, and so that I was going to possibly have to do something with it differently. So I got the lower done, and it worked out beautifully.
Yeah.
And I was just really pleased. It took a period of time, but boy, once it's done, it's done. And I'm just really happy with it. Well, then the doctor came up with what he thought was been over a year, that he came up with an idea that he thought might work on my upper. And I was really impressed that he even bothered to even consider my case because he was real emphatic and honest about there really couldn't be anything done to it because so much bone loss. But that was like it was a challenge to him. He was going to figure it out. And so he did. And I ended up getting quite extensive surgery on my upper with my sinuses. And
yeah, so it was pretty gnarly surgery.
It was not an easy process. But it was a successful process to where that now no more, I am denture free. They do not come out. And it's funny that every once in a while, it'll just snap back to me, oh my gosh, because it becomes automatic. Then you realize as to what a gift it is that you don't have dentures anymore.
Yeah.
And I wish I had known, or if this had been possible before all the bone loss. And I would tell anybody that's having dental problems we have different talents, and I think we have different challenges. And if a person's challenged, like the two of us, that it seems like the weakest part of our body are our denture or our dental.
Yeah.
So that rather than going through all the expense, oh my gosh, that I've gone through with dentists and of the pain that the expense would have been okay.
If it worked.
If it worked.
Right.
That would have been fine if it worked.
Yeah.
But it didn't. And the pain continued. It was just, okay, it would be like a lag, and then boom, and a lag, and boom. So The people today do not have to have that bone loss. They can get it at a much younger age before that bone loss happens, and it fits so much better. I mean, they don't have to have the surgery that I had to have, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm very grateful for the doctor that did that for me, because he certainly didn't have to. It was,
No, he didn't.
It
And
was a challenge, and
that's one of the reasons why, going through that with you, we didn't, just because I was breaking into the dental implant specialty field for the business development and marketing side of things, and and really the client that we're talking about here that did my, fix some dental implants that failed from Costa Rica. I mean, he was, and remember, that's how you found him. You found him. You actually helped me find someone local. That's how we actually...
I tried to get you to go to him before Costa Rica,
yeah,
as I recall.
Yeah. Heck of a vacation, though.
True.
That was
wonderful.
that was one of the top 5 vacations.
Yes,
but just,
it was.
Just not would have preferred to enjoy the whole thing rather than the amount of surgery. But but going back to, just because he was the client, you're my mom, which is way more important than him being my client. And so took the knowledge that I had already gained at that point, and we went to multiple consultations, and that's one of the things that I always want to encourage patients to do. I'm not a fan of radiation. I hate just how they'll try to, everybody wants their own CT scan and all that kind of good stuff, which is a pain. But, to try to get your images, which we were able to, because we had a relationship. I always want to tell patients, try to get your disc of images for the first one. And then as you go to the other ones, ask, so you don't have to go through the CT scan and all that kind of good stuff over and over for the extended radiation. But we went to 3 of the top ones you'll see on TV, the ones that I knew because I'm in the marketing game, that are doing the most business, doing the most of these, because you're going to think, okay, the guy who does the most has got the most practice. And so, going through this process, the heart behind doing this is really for the son doing it for his mom out there, for the mom doing it for his son. It is so hard to know who to trust. You just go to the ones that do the most business, and look at what happened when we went to all 3 of those. All 3 were different stories, right?
Right. And there was never any question. What I happened to go, the first one I went to was the doctor the dentist you were going to. And he was right up front and very honest that if you were my mother, I wouldn't do this. You just have too
for
much
the upper
bone,
part.
for the upper.
Yeah, lower is fine, but
you just have too much bone loss, because I've been wearing an upper denture all those years. And anybody that's thinking about a denture, let me tell you, you check this out first before you go the denture route. This is from one that wore one for a long time, and I've been on both sides of the fence, so I know from whence I'm cometh. He told me right up front. Well, the other 3 that I went to, there wasn't any question.
they could do it right.
That they could do it, just, let's make you an appointment or click. Never even mentioned the bone loss. Did not even mention it.
And one of them said, do it right away, do surgery, and you walk out with your final teeth. Remember that?
That day.
That day, your finals.
And I'll see you in a year to clean them.
And we really went through several hours of consultations to find this, and all 3 were different.
All 3 were different, but not one of them mentioned the bone loss, which makes it, really is a red flag to me because of all that I had to go through in order to get this, done right. That I can, what if I had not gone to this other one, the one that I ended up with, the great man that I ended up with, if I had not gone to him first and I had gone to one of the others and they said, no problem, let's just... Now that's the whole reason to go to a number of different people before you make the final decision.
Right.
Because if you go in one of them, it was just a lovely office. The people were lovely that were there. I really liked them.
Yeah, they were very likable, weren't they?
I really liked the people and the sincerity. But again, the bone loss wasn't even mentioned.
No.
And you can't... with implants, now I know a little about implants from this side. I don't know anything about for anyone else, but I know of my experience and as to how difficult it has been to get this upper done. The bottom was a piece of cake. Bottom was absolutely a piece of cake. And, please, first of all, if somebody says dentures or you're going to have too many crowns, consider implants because of the bone loss that you're going to have with the deal of it. And what's the lifespan of a crown?
Right.
You're eventually going to end up with dentures anyway.
Yeah.
And look at all the expense that you're going to have before that.
Yeah. And
that's what I wish that, of course, I didn't have that option. They weren't out that I knew about.
Yeah.
I don't think they were.
Yeah.
But please take at least 3 opinions. Mm-hmm. At least 3. And because that makes all the difference. And then you can make an educated opinion instead of, the other doctors that I went to, I didn't go and take other opinions from as far as with your orthodontics. I had the 2, but the orthodontist only went to 1. Yeah. And like I say, I really wish I had gone with...
They put you in a unique position, though, don't you? Okay, so now let's rewind to some of these appointments. Now the 3 consultations we went together, we kind of knew what we were going in for. We had better background, so they weren't able to bully us around. But go rewind the clock a little bit. You sit down with one. If he's halfway likable, you kind of go, okay, is my gut. But then a lot of them, whether they implement shame and try to embarrass you into a decision, or they try to flex their knowledge muscle and try to, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I do. I'm the guy. There were a lot of those in my history, I know for sure. And so that's something that, as I've talked to some of the other patients, because that's really the big part of what I'm trying to do before I get my surgery. I'm on a marathon on this thing, on filming patients that have already had this done. And my question for them, really wants to always stem from, what do you wish you knew then that you know now, which I'll ask you in a minute. But, I've told, and it's, Jen, we were talking about it, and so Sean, you're hiring them. Don't let them push you into a decision, that you feel intimidated, and they can be intimidated because you're extremely vulnerable. It's one of the most embarrassing and shameful parts.
That's the word. I was sitting here thinking of shame.
Yeah,
because then when you feel shame, you're
vulnerable.
Reluctant. Yes, you're reluctant to ask questions.
Right.
That need to be asked. That's why watching something like this or learning as much as you can before you ever go see one.
Right.
But education is the answer.
Right.
And the more you know, the better the outcome's going to be for you.
Right.
Because then, without
And the more you're going to enjoy it, because then the process, you feel like you've done your homework. You're not second guessing. Oh God, that's a lot of money. Did I pick a winner or not? And did I even ask all the right questions? So yeah, don't make sure you're asking, and don't let the shame creep in. I mean, it really is amazing. You know, we talked about the grandkids and the denture thing. I was talking yesterday with Jen about just, you know, of when you don't have teeth in, that just don't talk to me, don't look at me, don't, you know what I mean? And it's one of those things that breaks my heart. It is the way it is, but it's around everybody. So if you are feeling that way, you're in that position right now, again, please know, I've talked to so many that I'm in a unique position that I feel encouragement, because I feel like there's a community. We're part of a group now. I'm part of a new, I've talked to a lot of them. Now I'm part of the club, and it really is something that, wait a second, this should not define you from a shame standpoint. So, okay, let's kind of fast forward. Let me ask you that question, Mom, on how, what do you wish you knew then? So let's talk about these consultations. Let's go back to that. Let's rewind. Go back with me as we're doing this. What do you wish you knew then that you know now, after having gone through the lowers? So you first had the lowers that waited about a year, and then
I can't imagine walking in, getting it done, having the final done, and walk out and don't see them for another year.
oh God.
I mean, I can't comprehend that because of all the time that it took
my
on the
gosh.
lower.
Yeah.
And but because of him caring the way he did, and it took a lot of courage to do that, because it could have not turned out, and I was well
Could have
aware.
gone really bad.
I was well aware as to how much courage it was taking, and he was very brave to jump in because he cared. He wanted it to work, and so he figured it out.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of him, and I hope he's proud of himself.
Yeah.
Great job.
He is. So what do you wish you knew that, or then, that you know now?
Well, again, on who you choose. That is the biggest thing, because you're still gonna have some pain. But let me tell you, the end result, as long as you get the end result that you're going for. Now, I don't know with the other people that I went to as to what the end result would have been.
Yeah.
But I do know that it's very iffy that I don't know how they would have done it. So
Yeah, knowing what I know now versus then, I mean, I would have even...
Because they didn't mention any special... I mean, I was just, come in and do it. It's like I had never had a problem or no bone loss whatsoever. And don't take that lightly, that bone loss. I mean, you can't put it back. I guess you could. They had, I think, to even do a little grafting on me.
Yeah, they do some
They had to do grafting to put bone in here.
Yep.
So that's why if somebody mentioned you wearing dentures, or you're having a lot of dental problems, I would say, let me tell you, do your research and think about implants before you have the bone loss.
So one of the things that Mom has talked about a couple times on this is bone loss that comes with dentures. If you did not know this is something I had to learn through the journey I've gone through and learning with Mom. But when it comes to your teeth, when you extract all your teeth, your bone actually goes into atrophy. It basically stops being necessary. But you're like, what? I mean, who would have thought? You think bone is a constant? It's not. It's living. It's part of your body. And so if you don't need it anymore, it'll just start your body will say, I need to send resources and energy and to the rest of the body that needs it, and no longer is this needed, so it starts going away. It recedes. So your bone actually goes away. That's why you can see people, God bless them, that have just been in dentures for 30, 40 years, and you see that sunken face and that type of stuff. So it is very real, the bone loss side of things. And so keep that into consideration. And talking with all the specialists I've talked to, bone is gold in the dental world. It's just gold. And so, you know, in looking at this process and looking at, even if it's single implants, you know, I mean, we've had plenty of bridges where they'll take out a tooth and then all of a sudden, you know, you got 2 teeth on holding up in that middle area. Even that middle area now all of a sudden becomes more concave. And gosh, I mean, I wish I would have known about implants sooner too, but here we are, and God has been gracious to us. So we're going to say thank you and not complain, but we have a lot of frustration towards dentists, which I think has probably been picked up, and don't need to bang that drum anymore. But tell me about the healing process.
Okay, I will. But something just dawned on me that I hadn't thought about. Of when I had crowns. I had crowns done. I had crowns. I had bridges. I had, you know. But, you know, not one dentist told me of when they were putting those in there, the crown, that you're more than likely this is more than likely going to abscess on you. I mean, no one ever brings that up of when they're putting the new crown in, or you're talking, bridge or a crown, as to what's the likelihood of this abscessing a few years down the road. In my experience, every one of them had an abscess on them. Mm-hmm. Every single one over the period of years. But nobody ever told me that was a possibility. So ask questions. Do not be afraid. And if you're kind of timid, sit down and write them down before you go in. Write down your question. But educating yourself, like watching this, if I had seen this when I was starting out with all my dental excursions, before I ever got to 4-on-4, you know, maybe you're blessed to have wonderful teeth. Oh my God, you talk about a blessing.
Amen.
God has blessed you.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
in that way.
Yeah.
He's blessed us in other ways.
That's right.
And but do your homework. Do your homework by all means. And the pain afterwards, you're going to have some pain, but you get through. The outcome is so worth any pain that you get. That doesn't last forever by any means. So, the reward is worth nothing ventured. No pain, no gain. And I feel like I've certainly gotten the gain from the pain I had.
So it was worth it.
It was absolutely worth it. And I just wish that I had done it much earlier. That's my only regret, is that I wish I could have done it at a much younger age.
Which is unique, you say that, and in talking with some of the others that we've interviewed all across this country, where there's just been, I've interviewed several younger than me, and I've always kind of felt like, you know, am I too young for this? Am I too, and that type of deal. And I mean, every single time, you're not too young. And it's not something to be embarrassed about. And it's not something cheap. It's a privilege, It really is. It's a privilege to be able to have this, because some people, they have to go to dentures. And I don't want, and those that do have to go to dentures, please don't let shame creep in. And we've been in, we've seen the mountaintop and the valley when it comes financially. So I know
that's why I went to dental school.
Yeah.
Finances has changed very much, and I went to dental school to get them pulled and the surgery done and the So I've been on this way and that way as far as what I've paid and what finances have been, but that doesn't determine you. When I was working for the orthodontist, he said, if you'll notice, he would tell this to patients, and we did, of course, worked with children primarily, not only one adult, but he said, when you look at a person, the first thing that you see are either their eyes or their mouth. And so that your mouth is very important.
Huge.
Of where that, and that's where I think the shame comes in.
Yeah.
And I feel very, I know, you have grandiose ideas of, oh my God, if I win the lottery, what am I going to do? My deal was I was going to go down and people that were poor that didn't have teeth, I was going to get them teeth because that would change their life more than I think anything else could. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think the shame comes in, the emotions. That a lot of emotions are into a smile or into your teeth, your dental.
Yeah.
So,
emotion.
Yeah. So that's why I think it's really important of sitting and educating yourself unemotionally so that you can deal with your emotions of when you go in for a consult.
There's one thing that, I'm going to actually have Jen come on, my wife, Jennifer Griffin, and ask her through the eyes of a spouse. And I think this is Jen has done a really good job. I want to brag on her. She's really kind of let me have my space, because we've talked about the shame piece of it. It's not something you want to talk a lot about.
No.
It's not something you want to even, you feel embarrassed that you have to spend the money. You almost feel a little selfish, right? You almost feel like, and so let's talk about that for a minute for patient. Let's do a session or a segment for spouses out there of patients that are going to have to go through this. What would you tell that spouse, or what would be a good, somebody's doing due diligence for their spouse on this and watching this, what would be some good advice or questions, or what would you like to say to them on a good, some pointers to walk through this well with their spouse that's going to have this procedure done?
You cannot be too supportive. You absolutely cannot be too supportive.
Yeah.
And if there's anything not to use your sense of humor for, in any form or fashion.
Right.
Because there's not one thing funny about it. And I love to laugh. I do. I love to laugh.
Yeah.
And I love jokes. We used to call them cruelty jokes.
Yeah, sarcasm is a love language in our family for sure.
But when it comes to your mouth,
That's a great
there
point.
is really nothing funny about it. And you were talking about giving space. Giving space is a wonderful idea. And just, be there. You don't have to draw attention to it. Just be loving without even discussing the mouth. Just being loving and supportive. But don't be funny, or don't say, or ask too many questions as far as, well, let me see what they did, or let me see that. Don't do that.
Right.
If they want you to see something, they'll show it to you.
Right.
You don't need to you can be supportive, but you don't have to be as involved. Other surgeries, you need to be very involved. You need to listen, go to the consultations with them, and ask questions with them. But it's almost threatening, even with somebody as close as can be, because the mouth is as close to your soul as I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's I really and truly, and when they, and I guess that's why when we look at a person, that's what we see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the eyes and the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So just know that you cannot be too supportive, and you don't have to be too curious.
Yeah.
Because if they want to tell you about it, they will.
will.
Be very curious at the consultation on asking the doctor.
Yeah, being a second set of eyes to see if
be
you
very
got it.
curious there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different deal. But you don't need to be curious as to what's going on. Just be supportive, please.
Yeah. You know, I would recommend and say amen to that. And also, you know, have the conversation of up front when you know that there's a challenge where you just say, look, I'm for you. I'm with you. I know this is challenging, and I'm going to leave it at that, but know anything you need, anything, I'm here. And you just be kind of sensitive to when you need to help and step in, or they might be in pain and they don't want to show it. Give them some space, help take some things off their plate. I mean, it's, you almost don't want to be, you almost feel like you're, when you're in those pain, when you're in that mouth pain or that kind of stuff, you almost feel like you're a burden and you don't want to talk about it and you want to just suck it up. And so if you notice that, if you notice that your spouse or your loved one is in pain or wincing, or you see them flinch when they're eating and that kind of type of stuff, you don't need to bring attention to it. You don't need to, what's wrong? What's any of that? But just be sensitive, because it is real. And like Mom said, I've thought about it. I could lose an arm. God, I don't want to, but I mean, I could lose an arm. I could lose, almost lost an eye, you know? I mean, we went through that road, didn't we?
Couple of times,
huh? And I've thought, okay, if that happened, and I've seen people, and you don't, it's weird. You don't have that same reaction that you do when you see somebody that has maybe 3 or 4 teeth left. It doesn't. And when you have it, when it's your deal, you know, you're like, it's just, yeah, exactly. And you learn to smile without
Absolutely.
any teeth showing, and talk a certain way, let that lip hang over the teeth so they can't see it. And so it's real. Okay, we don't want to bang that drum anymore, but I just, you know, for the spouses out there, I just really got to thinking about that. And I'm going to let Jen come on and speak through the eyes of a spouse, because I know, you know, I also want to give credence to a spouse too, because they probably feel helpless and they feel they want to help and they want to, maybe they, like you talked about, joking about it, they think that might lighten it or make it less awkward. It doesn't, it makes it worse. But, you know, I think that's something that we're going to end up doing. Well, my surgery is, Saturday, Sunday, but 4 or 5 days from now. And, you know, we were there for both of yours. I told the doc I won't film those, although I was in Cheryl, my mother-in-law's surgery, filmed that from beginning to end. God has a sense of humor. And yet, you know, we really were blessed. You know, there are some good ones out there.
There really are. And the fact of honesty just goes so far. And for him to look me directly in the eye and say, you know, I wouldn't, and I'm a perfect candidate. I mean, he could have just said, like the other 3 said, you know, let's get her done. But
Get out your checkbook and let's make it happen.
But he looked at it and he said, you know, I just don't, I would not advise having it done, because I don't see any way that it's going to be successful.
Yeah.
And so I accepted that. And I never asked any further all that time that we were working on this. I went back for a number of different appointments, and I accepted as far as, and he worked this in to work with my denture. And so, I accepted it, and that was fine. But he apparently, behind the scenes, without anybody asking, gracefully giving up his time studying. Of, okay, how can we get this through? He took it as a challenge.
We had a lot
very
of conversations
quietly.
behind the doors that you were not privy
Oh, I
to,
certainly was not, because
because he was willing to go. And so, I don't, I've had to say this in a couple other videos, so I'm going to give my disclaimer. I am choosing Radiance Dentistry. I no longer work with them. We have a friendship for sure, but I no longer work them, and I have access to a lot of clinicians all around the country. But I am choosing him, and we negotiated pricing before any of this idea of documentary came on board, and agreed to that. And so this is not a commercial for him. No one is paying us for this.
No.
And so we're really doing this with a heart and spirit to say, but again, we got to also share our experience, and we're going to share the good and the bad and the ugly. And so we can't just beat up all dentists, which I sometimes feel like doing, without giving credit to the ones that do a good job. I guess to close out, I am very grateful that you have been as supportive as you have, and I know I've always had someone very close and dear to me that I know I can talk to and share some of the challenges and pain and frustration that have led up to this. And now, to hopefully have my top right now, only doing the upper right now, but to have my top finished and to not have to worry about that again, God willing. But yeah, thank you for walking through this with me. And
I just feel, I feel badly that it's from my side that you got the bad teeth. The other side has good teeth.
Yeah.
So you inherited that from me, and I feel so badly about that. But I sure know what you're going through. It's something that we've shared. I would think of other things that we could share, but you take what you can get. Right?
That's right. That's right. And it's bonding, and so we have that, and I'm very grateful that your smile looks like it does. I really am. I mean, it looks beautiful, and I'm glad that we were able to kind of check that one off.
Well, I have you to thank for us going to checking out, which was your idea of going and checking out with 3 other experts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it gave me even more confidence, which is important to have confidence with who is doing your work.
Yeah.
It gave me even more confidence as to he knew what he was talking about, and he was very honest with me. And you can't ask for more than that.
Mm-mm.
You can't ask.
Enough, I'll trust him with my mom, which is a big deal. And I actually like my mom, so that's a good thing. I having been the son that goes through this with his mom on going to the consultations, doing the research, became part of my job for the last several years on how do I tell that story. So I've interviewed a bunch of patients. I've interviewed a lot of clinicians. I've been to a lot of dental practices. I am going to say the majority, the really good ones are far and few between. So really spend time doing the homework. But going through all this as a son, doing the due diligence, and now having to go through it myself, you can't do too much due diligence. I know sometimes it gets to a point to where you want it done. You want it done quickly, and you can hear some promises. We'll give your final in 24 hours, and you can. and so that's really why we're going to try to continue to bring on, especially after the surgery that I go through, we're going to bring on experts. We're going to bring on some hygiene experts. We're going to bring on other clinicians, dental implant experts in the industry and manufacturers to kind of discuss everything there is on some of the details on that. But before the surgery, I wanted to take time primarily with previous patients that we've walked through this process with, and we haven't walked through one more closely than with you. And so it's fun to sit across from you and see you smile and know that I get to partake in that too. So I love you.
I love you, darling. And I know that you're in very good hands. And my prayers are with you for Wednesday. And I hope that this will be the end for you for a good long time.
Please, God.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause it's
Enough's
a pain.
enough.
Yeah. Well, again, we appreciate you guys joining us and being a part of the journey with us. And any questions that you guys have, I always encourage comments are your friend. So, and you've touched on a couple things that has even sparked some ideas while we're talking, like maybe even putting together a consultation type group of dentists that could review a case for a fee. That they're not going to do the case themselves, but review it so they're not trying to hustle money out of you. So you can, after you've gone to consultations, I think that'll be something I'd like to do. And then also, we've talked about it of trying to put a fund together at some point for those that can't afford it, God willing. So, but one step at a time.
Your heart and my heart, really, we see that very quickly of someone like that, and it really
breaks your heart.
It does break your heart because you know that their lives could have been very different if they didn't have the dental issue and getting it, of how much that might could turn it around for them.
That's right.
Could literally turn their life around. And I have seen dentists, not specialists, but how in the world are dentists that are just general dentists advertising to do implants?
You know what I was actually talking about yesterday with Jen, and I think that's one of the things that nobody knows. You have to have no specialty to place.
No,
them,
you don't
or
have
do
to
the
have any
All-On-4,
training.
or to do the All-On-4, All-On-X, whatever we want to call it.
So if you're at your dentist's office and he says, this tooth is bad, I could put an implant in there and that could work very nicely. And you think, well, that'd be all right.
Right.
That'll work great. Ask where he got his training. Ask, what type of material he's going to use.
How many
or
he's
just
done.
Say, how many have you done?
Mm-hmm.
And don't jump in there and do it until you've done some homework.
Sure.
Say, I'll think about that. Do not give an answer then. Please don't.
Yeah.
That's a red flag comes up, red light, ding, 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 ding. Check out, education, because I see them advertised on magazines and in the television.
Yeah.
As a general dentist, implants. And I think,
Well,
oh my God, implants is very involved. It's very serious. It's not like...
And it's very profitable for the doctors, and that's okay. They're allowed to make their money, but when you look at the margin and their time, and that's one of the reasons we help focus. It's a better time value money.
But it's a lot more involved than a crown.
That's right.
A lot more involved than a crown.
Know what you're doing, and that's why it's been grateful partnering with MIS and seeing them grow their clinical training as an implant brand to not just they've owned up a little bit from what I've seen on really trying to get their doctors. Somebody's interested in implants, they don't want their name out there and their brand out there, but there's a lot. There's people out there that'll go to a 8-hour course and then feel like they're experts where you're going, So, good point. Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking time on a Saturday, and I love you.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you.